I gave her everything. My savings, my house, my heart. I thought she loved me. I was 67 years old, and I believed her when she said I was different, that I was special, but I wasn't special. I was just available. I was sitting at this beach bar in Pattaya on a Tuesday night, staring at my third beer like it might tell me something I needed to hear. The ocean was black except for the lights from the hotels reflecting on the water. I'd been in Thailand for 2 months by then, running from a house in New Jersey that felt like a mausoleum. My wife Linda died 3 years ago, and everyone kept telling me time heals everything. They were wrong. Time just gave me more empty space to notice she wasn't there anymore. Every room in that house still smelled like her lavender lotion. Every corner held some memory I couldn't shake. The kitchen where she'd make her terrible coffee. The bathroom where I'd find her hair ties even months after she was gone. I couldn't take it anymore, so I bought a one-way ticket to Bangkok, told my daughter Rachel I needed a change of scenery, and landed in Pattaya because some guy on a forum said it was cheap and warm and you could disappear if you wanted to. I wanted to disappear. The bar was half empty that night. A couple of Russian guys were arguing about football in the corner. An old German man sat with a girl who couldn't have been older than 20, and I tried not to stare because I knew what everyone thought when they saw that. Then she walked over to my table. "You want another beer?" she asked. Her voice was soft and her English was broken, but something about her smile made the whole room feel quieter. I looked up and I swear my heart did this stupid thing where it forgot how to beat right. She was young. Not just young. 22, I'd find out later. She had long, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and these eyes that looked at you like she actually saw you. Like you weren't invisible. I told her I was okay and she laughed. "You not look okay. You look very sad." She sat down across from me without asking permission and I didn't stop her. "What your name?" she asked. I told her Byron and she repeated it slowly like she was trying it out. Byron. That very nice name. Strong name. "I am Ketzerin." I asked what that meant and she said something about a flower, but honestly I don't remember because I was too busy trying to figure out why this beautiful girl was sitting with me. She started asking questions. Where was I from? How long was I staying? Did I like Thailand? Normal questions, but she asked them like she really wanted to know, like my answers mattered. I told her about New Jersey, and she said she'd never been to America, but always wanted to go. I told her I'd been here 2 months, and she asked why so long. I said I was retired. She asked what I did before, and I told her I was an insurance adjuster for 30 years. She didn't know what that meant, so I explained I help people after bad things happen to them. Car accidents, house fires, deaths. She got quiet and said, "That very sad job. You must have big heart to do that job." Nobody had ever said that to me before. Not in 30 years. We talked for over an hour. She told me she was from Udon Thani, a province up north. She came to Pattaya to work and send money home to her family. Her mother was sick. Her younger brother Sam was in university. She worked at this bar 6 days a week and sent almost everything home. I asked if that was hard and she shrugged. That what family do. We take care each other. When the bar started to close, she stood up and I thought that was it, that I'd never see her again. But she touched my arm and said, "You come tomorrow? I like talk to you more." I nodded because I couldn't find words. She smiled and walked away, and I just sat there like an idiot replaying the whole conversation. When I finally got up to leave, I caught my reflection in the bar mirror. Gray hair, lines around my eyes. 70 pounds heavier than I was in my 20s. I looked old. I looked exactly like what I was, a lonely widower drinking alone in a foreign country. But for 1 hour I hadn't felt old. I'd felt seen. I walked back to my condo and couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way she said my name, the way she listened when I talked. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt wanted. I went back the next night and the night after that. By the end of the first week, I was going every single night. Ketzerin was always there, and every time I walked in, her face would light up. "Byron," she'd say, "you come back." Like she was surprised, even though I'd been there the night before. We'd sit at the same corner table and she'd bring me a singha without me having to ask. "You like same thing every time," she said once. "You like routine. That good. Thai people same. We like routine too. We like know what coming. I liked that she noticed. I liked that she paid attention. She asked about my life, and I told her everything. I told her about Linda and how we met at a company Christmas party in 1982, how she laughed at my jokes even though they weren't funny, how she got sick 5 years ago and fought for 2 years before her body just gave up. Ketzerin listened to all of it. She didn't check her phone. She didn't look around the bar. She just looked at me. She very lucky woman, she said, to have husband who love her so much. You good man, Byron, I can tell. Then she took my hand and held it across the table. Her hand was small and warm, and I realized it had been 3 years since anyone had touched me like that, like they wanted to. One night I showed her photos on my phone, pictures of the boat I used to have, a 32-foot sailboat I kept in Barnegat Bay. Linda and I would take it out on weekends. After she died, I couldn't stand looking at it, so I sold it for half what it was worth. Ketzerin looked at every photo. You look so happy here, she said, pointing at one of me at the helm. Not like now. Now you have sad in your eyes. I told her I'd been sad for a long time. She squeezed my hand. You need find happy again, Byron. Life too short for only sad. Something cracked inside my chest when she said that. After the bar closed that night, she asked if I'd walk her home. I said, of course. We walked through these narrow streets with motorbikes parked on the sidewalks and laundry hanging from windows. The air smelled like grilled meat and exhaust and something sweet I couldn't place. She lived above a noodle shop in a building that looked like it might fall over if you pushed it. When we got to her door, she turned and looked at me for a long moment. Then she stood on her toes and kissed me on the cheek. Soft, quick. Good night, Byron, she said. Thank you for walk me home. Then she went inside and I stood there like a complete fool with my heart hammering in my chest. I walked back to my condo and couldn't stop smiling. I felt ridiculous. I felt like I was 25 again. I felt alive. The next day I met Dave for lunch at a place that served burgers that tasted almost American. Dave was another expat, early 60s, from California. He'd been in Pattaya for 5 years after his wife left him and took half of everything. He took one look at me and grinned. You met someone, he said. It wasn't a question. I told him about Ketzerin, and he nodded slow like he'd heard this story before. How old is she? He asked. I told him 22. He didn't say anything for a minute. Then he leaned back and sighed. Just be careful, man. These girls, they're sweet. They're nice. But you gotta remember this is how they survive. It's a business. I got defensive. I told him Ketzerin wasn't like that. She never asked me for money. Hell, she barely let me tip her. She just liked talking to me. Dave held up his hands. I'm not saying she's a bad person. I'm not saying she's scamming you. I'm just saying be smart. Keep your eyes open. I told him I was always smart. I told him I'd been handling money and reading people for 30 years. But I was lying. I wasn't being smart. I was being lonely. And lonely men don't think straight. About 2 weeks in, Ketzerin stopped showing up at the bar. The first night I thought maybe she had a day off. The second night I asked the other girl working and she said Ketzerin was sick. Panic hit me in the gut. I didn't have her phone number. I didn't know exactly where she lived except it was above the noodle shop. I walked there that night and asked the old woman cooking if she knew which apartment was Ketzerin's. She pointed up a concrete staircase on the side of the building. I climbed up and knocked. Ketzerin opened the door and I could see immediately something was wrong. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her face was pale. Byron, she said, what you doing here? How you find me? I told her I was worried and asked what was wrong. She shook her head. Nothing. I okay, just tired. But she wasn't okay. I could see she'd been crying. I asked again and she finally stepped aside and let me in. Her apartment was tiny. One room maybe 12 feet square with a mattress on the floor, a hot plate in the corner, a small TV on a plastic table, and a fan that sounded like it was dying. There was a window, but it looked out at a concrete wall. She sat down on the mattress and put her face in her hands. I sat next to her and waited. Finally, she started talking. My mother very sick, she said. Her voice was shaking. She have problem with stomach. Doctors say she need operation or she die. But operation cost very much money. 50,000 baht. I don't have that money, Byron. I save everything, but I only have 20,000. My brother Som, he in university, second year. If I take money from his school, he have to leave. He have to come work. All his dream finish. I don't know what to do. She started crying, and I felt my heart break into pieces. I put my arm around her, and she leaned into me. I try so hard, Byron. I work every day. I send money, but never enough. Never enough. I asked her how much 50,000 baht was in dollars. She didn't know. I pulled out my phone and did the conversion. About 1,500 bucks, maybe 2,000 depending on fees. That was nothing to me. That was a car repair. That was a dental bill. I told her I'd help. She pulled back and looked at me with these wide, shocked eyes. No, Byron. No, I cannot take your money. That too much. I cannot ask you that. I told her she didn't ask. I was offering. She shook her head. No, no, no. You already so kind to me. You come see me every night. You walk me home. You listen to my story. I cannot take money from you. What kind of person I am. I took both her hands. You're the kind of person who takes care of her family, I said. Let me help. Please. She cried harder and hugged me tight. You are Angel, Byron. You best man I ever meet in my life. I never forget this. Never. That night I went to an ATM and transferred $2,000 to her account. She gave me the number and I made the transfer right there while she watched. When it went through, she started crying again and threw her arms around my neck. Thank you, thank you, thank you, she kept saying. You saved my mother. You saved my family. She kissed me on the mouth for the first time. It was soft and tasted like salt from her tears. When she pulled back, she was smiling through the crying. I love you, Byron, she said. I know maybe too soon to say, but I do. I love you. I felt like my chest might explode. I told her I loved her too, even though I'd only known her 2 weeks. We stood there holding each other in that tiny room, and I thought maybe this is it. Maybe this is my second chance. Maybe God or fate or whatever brought me to Thailand for this exact moment. When I left that night, I looked back and saw her on her phone. She was texting someone and smiling. I told myself she was probably telling her mother the good news. Or her brother. I didn't let myself think about who else it might be. 3 days later, there was a knock on my condo door. It was Ketzerin, and she had a small bag with her. Can I stay here tonight? She asked. My roommate kicked me out. She say I owe money for rent, but I already pay. She just mean, I have nowhere go. I told her of course she could stay. She came in and put her bag down, and I made her tea. We sat on the couch, and she told me about her roommate, another bar girl who was jealous because Ketzerin got better tips. She said she'd find a new place tomorrow. I told her there was no rush. That night we slept in the same bed. Nothing happened. We just lay there, and she held my hand until she fell asleep. I stayed awake for hours, just looking at her. I couldn't believe this beautiful young woman was in my bed, that she chose to be here. 1 night turned into 2, 2 turned into 3. By the end of the week, she still hadn't looked for a new place. I didn't mind. I loved having her there. I loved waking up next to someone. I loved having coffee together in the morning. She'd make these Thai omelets with fish sauce that tasted weird, but I ate them anyway because she made them for me. We'd watch Thai soap operas in the evening and she'd try to translate, but I never understood what was happening. I didn't care. I just liked sitting next to her. After about 2 weeks, she sat me down and said she wanted to quit her job at the bar. I want to take care of you full time, she said. You take care of me. I take care of you. That how it should be. I asked if she was sure, and she nodded. I sure. I love you, Byron. I want be with you. Only you. So she quit, and I started paying for things. Her phone bill, $70 a month. Her old rent because apparently her roommate was still demanding money, $200 a month. Little things that added up. Then one day she said Som's tuition was due. $5,000 for the semester. I transferred it that afternoon. She cried and called me her hero. A week later, she said her mother needed medication. The operation went well, but now there were prescriptions. Another 1,000. I sent it. Every time she asked, I said yes. Not because I felt pressured, because I wanted to. Because every time I helped her, she'd kiss me and tell me I was different, that I wasn't like other men, that she loved me. I needed to hear that. I needed to feel needed. But things started to change. Small things at first. She'd go out and say she was going to the market or visiting a friend, but she'd be gone for hours. When she came back, she'd smell like perfume I didn't recognize. Expensive perfume. I asked her about it once and she said her friend let her try some. I let it go. She started keeping her phone face down all the time. When it buzzed, she'd grab it quick and take it to the bathroom. I asked who was texting her and she'd say her brother or her mother or a friend from back home. One night I woke up at 2 a.m. and heard her in the bathroom talking to someone. She was speaking Thai, so I couldn't understand, but I could hear her laughing. This wasn't a normal laugh. It was the kind of laugh you save for someone special, someone who makes your stomach flip. When she came back to bed, I asked who she was talking to. My cousin, she said. He called from Bangkok. Sorry if I wake you. She kissed my forehead and rolled over. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what Dave said, about being careful, about keeping my eyes open. But I didn't want to see what I was afraid might be there. So I closed my eyes and told myself I was being paranoid, that she loved me, that this was real. One morning, Ketzerin made me coffee and sat down with this serious look on her face. My stomach dropped. I thought she was about to break up with me. She reached across the table and took both my hands. Byron, I want to talk to you about something important, she said. I nodded and waited. I want build house, in my village, in Udon Thani, for us, for my mother, for our future together. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My brain was trying to process what she just said. Build a house. Our future. Together. She kept talking. Udon Thani, very beautiful, Byron. Not like Pattaya, quiet, peaceful, clean air, good people. We can have land, have garden. My mother can live with us. We can be real family. You and me. Forever. I asked how much something like that would cost. She looked down at her coffee. Maybe $80,000, maybe little more. I know that very much money. But we build good house, strong house that lasts long time. $80,000. That was a third of my retirement savings. That was more money than I'd ever spent on anything except the house in Jersey. I felt the air get thick. She saw my face and her eyes filled with tears. You don't want, she said. It wasn't a question. You don't want live with me. You think I'm not good enough for you. I told her that wasn't true. I told her I just needed time to think about it. She stood up fast. Her chair scraped against the floor. Time to think, she said. Her voice cracked. I give you everything, Byron. I leave my job for you. I take care of you every day. I cook. I clean. I make you happy. And you need think about if you want be with me? I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. I stupid, she said. I think you love me. I think you different from other man. But you same. You just want young girl for fun. You don't want real life with me. She started crying and went into the bedroom. I heard the door lock. I sat there feeling like the worst human being alive. I thought about Linda, about how we built a life together, how we made decisions together. But this wasn't the same. Ketzerin wasn't asking me to buy a house. She was asking me to prove I loved her. She was asking me to choose her. That night I apologized through the bedroom door. I told her she was right, that I was scared, that I'd been alone so long I forgot how to let someone in. I told her we'd build the house. The door opened and she fell into my arms crying. You mean it? She asked. I told her yes. You make me so happy, Byron. I love you so much. We be together forever. I promise. Forever. The next morning I called my bank in the U.S. I talked to some kid who sounded like he was 12 and set up the international transfers. I started with $20,000. Ketzerin said that would cover the land and the permits. A week later she said they needed another 20 for materials. I sent it. 2 weeks after that she said the workers needed to be paid up front. Another 20. Then there were unexpected costs. Plumbing, electrical, windows, doors. Every week she needed more money, and every week I sent it because I thought I was building our future. She showed me photos on her phone, the cleared land, the foundation poured, the walls going up, the roof being framed. It looked real. It looked like something I could see myself living in. I asked when we could go visit, and she said soon. Not ready yet, Byron. Too much dust, too much noise, very dangerous. You wait little more. When finish we go. You see everything. You love it, I promise. I waited. Around this time my daughter Rachel called from New Jersey. Dad, how are you? She asked. I could hear something in her voice. Worry, maybe? I told her I was great, better than I'd been in years. She asked what I was doing, and I told her I met someone. There was a long pause. That's great, Dad, she said, but her voice was flat. How old is she? I lied without thinking. Mid-30s. She's Thai. Really sweet. Takes good care of me. Another pause. Dad, you sound different. Are you okay? Like really okay? I told her I was fine. She didn't believe me. Just be careful, okay? Don't do anything stupid. I laughed it off. Told her not to worry. Said I'd call her soon. After I hung up, I felt this weight settle in my chest. Like I'd done something wrong. Like everyone could see what I was trying not to see. But I pushed it down. I chose to believe in Ketzerin. I chose to believe in us. I came home early one afternoon and heard Ketzerin laughing in the bedroom. The door was cracked and I could see her lying on the bed FaceTiming someone. She was speaking Thai, but I could hear the tone. Playful, flirty, the kind of voice you use with someone you're trying to impress. I pushed the door open and she jumped. Literally jumped off the bed. She hung up immediately. Byron, she said, her face flushed. You home early. I thought you go coffee with Dave today. I asked who she was talking to. She wouldn't look at me. My cousin Knock, she said. He help with house. He called to tell me about progress. I asked why she looked so startled. Why she hung up. She got defensive. Because you scare me. You just come in. Connection bad anyway. We finished talking. She kissed me on the cheek and went to the kitchen. I stood there feeling like I'd just caught her doing something, but I couldn't prove what. Over the next few weeks, Knock's name came up more and more. Knock say, workers need bonus for finish fast. Knock say, we need buy better tiles, or floor will crack. Knock say, have to pay extra for government inspection. Every conversation ended with her needing to send money. Another 5,000, another 10, another 15. I was hemorrhaging cash, but I couldn't stop, because stopping meant admitting something I wasn't ready to admit. One night I woke up thirsty. It was maybe 2 a.m. Ketzerin was asleep next to me. I got up to get water and saw her phone on the bathroom counter. It was still unlocked. I knew I shouldn't. I knew it was a violation of trust. But my hands moved before my brain caught up. I opened her photos. Most were of the house. Some were of her and her mother. Then I scrolled and found one that made my blood turn cold. It was Ketsarin and a young Thai guy, maybe 25, handsome. They were at a nice restaurant, candles on the table. She was leaning into him. He had his arm around her waist. Their fingers were intertwined. They looked like a couple. They looked in love. I stared at that photo until my eyes burned. I heard the toilet flush and shoved the phone back. Ketzerin came out and I was standing there in the dark. You okay? She asked. I asked who was in the photo with her, the one at the restaurant. She didn't even flinch. Which photo? She asked. I told her to check her phone. She picked it up and scrolled. When she found it, she smiled a little. That Knock, my cousin I tell you about. I said cousins don't hold hands like that. She laughed like I was being ridiculous. Byron, you don't understand Thai culture. We very close with family. Not like America where everyone cold. In Thailand we show love. We hold hand. We hug. That normal. She put the phone down and hugged me. You worry too much. You think too much. I love only you. Nobody else. Okay? She kissed me and went back to bed. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her so badly. So I did. I poured myself a whiskey. Then another. Then I just took the bottle to bed. I started drinking every night. It was the only way to shut up the voice in my head screaming that I was being played. I woke up one Tuesday morning and Ketzerin was gone. Not gone like she went to the market. Gone like all her toiletries were missing from the bathroom. her makeup bag, her toothbrush, her shampoo, but her clothes were still in the closet. I called her phone. It went straight to voicemail. I texted her. Nothing. An hour passed, then 2, then 5. By evening, I was pacing the condo like a caged animal. I called Dave. She's gone, I told him. He asked what I meant. She left this morning and her phone's off and I don't know where she is. There was a pause. Byron, she probably just went to visit her mom or something. Give her time. I told him I couldn't. I told him we needed to go to Udon Thani, to the village, to the house. He sighed heavy. You sure you want to do that? I told him I had to know. He said he'd pick me up in an hour. We drove north for 3 hours, barely speaking. I had the address from one of the bank transfers. We arrived just before sunset. The village was small, dirt roads, chickens running around, kids playing barefoot. The house was easy to find. It was the nicest building in the area. 2 stories, yellow paint, big windows, a porch with tile. It was beautiful. It was everything she showed me, but it was empty. No furniture, no people, no Ketzerin. I got out of the car and just stood there staring at it. $85,000. My money. Her dream. I walked up to the neighbor's house and knocked. An old Thai woman answered. She looked at me with these sad, knowing eyes. You Byron? She asked in broken English. I nodded. I am Mrs. Pramyun. I neighbor. I asked if she knew where Ketzerin was. She looked at me the way you look at someone who's about to hear bad news. She go Bangkok, she said. With boyfriend. The world tilted. Boyfriend? I repeated. She nodded slowly. Young man. Name Knock. They together long time. Before you come. I felt Dave's hand on my shoulder, but I shrugged it off. How long? I asked. How long together? Mrs. Pramwan thought about it. Maybe 3 year. Maybe more. He come here all the time. They build house together. For them, not for you. She said it gently, but it hit like a hammer. I walked back to the house and just stared. I paid for this. I built this for them. For him. I was never part of the plan. I was just the bank. Dave didn't say anything. What could he say? We drove back to Pattaya in complete silence. When I got to my condo, I sat in the dark and waited. I don't know what I was waiting for. Around midnight, my phone rang. It was her. Byron, where you go today? She asked. Her voice was calm. Normal. Like nothing was wrong. I told her I went to Udon Thani. Long pause. Why you do that? I tell you not ready. I tell you wait. I asked her who Knock really was. She sighed like I was exhausting her. He, my cousin Byron. I tell you so many time. Why you don't believe me? I asked why Mrs. Pramuan said he was her boyfriend. She got angry. Actually angry. You believe neighbor? Old woman who know nothing? You don't believe me? Your girlfriend? You so jealous, Byron. So insecure. You make me very tired. Her voice got cold. I need space. You too much pressure. Too much questions. I need think about us. I asked when she was coming back. Maybe few days. Maybe more. I don't know. I call you. Then she hung up. I sat there holding my dead phone. She never called back. She never came back. I sat in that condo for 6 days waiting. I called every few hours. Voicemail. I texted. Nothing. On the 7th day, I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. I added up every transfer I made to her. Every wire. Every payment. The house. Psalm's tuition. May's medical bills. The phone. The rent. The random emergencies that kept coming up. $512,000. Gone. Over $500,000. I felt like I might throw up. I called a lawyer in Bangkok, an American guy who specialized in expat issues. I explained everything. He listened patiently, and when I finished, he let out a long breath. Mr. Byron, I'm sorry, but you don't have a case. You gave her money voluntarily. No contract. No loan agreement. No marriage. In the eyes of Thai law, you gave gifts to your girlfriend. She has no legal obligation to return them. I asked about the house. Is her name on the deed? He asked. I said no. Her mother's name. Then you have zero claim. It's not your property. I asked if there was anything I could do. You could file a police report for fraud, but honestly, without evidence of explicit deception, it won't go anywhere. This happens all the time here. I'm sorry. I hung up and stared at the wall. I thought about flying to Bangkok, hiring a private investigator, finding her, confronting her, but what would that accomplish? She didn't love me. She never loved me. I was a retirement plan, a walking ATM, an old, lonely man who was desperate enough to believe a 22-year-old girl actually wanted him. I booked a flight back to Newark, one way, leaving in 3 days. I packed my clothes and left everything else. The furniture I bought, the dishes, the photos of us I'd printed and framed like an idiot. I left it all. On my last night, Dave came over. We sat on the balcony and drank beer and watched the city lights. "You gonna be okay?" he asked. I told him I didn't know. He nodded. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I tried to warn you, but I could have tried harder." I told him it wouldn't have mattered. When you're drowning, you don't listen to people on the shore. You just drown. The flight back was 16 hours. I sat by the window and watched Thailand disappear below the clouds. I thought about the first night I met her, how she said my name like it mattered, how she made me feel alive for the first time in years. I thought about every red flag I saw and ignored, her phone always face down, the mysterious cousin, the constant need for money, the way she'd get angry when I questioned anything, the way she never actually let me visit the house. I saw all of it. I just chose to be blind because the alternative was too painful. The alternative was admitting I was alone, that at 67 years old I was still alone, and being used felt better than being invisible. When I landed in Newark, Rachel was waiting at arrivals. She saw me come through, and her face fell. I must have looked like hell. I'd lost weight. My clothes didn't fit right. I hadn't shaved in a week. She didn't say anything. She just walked over and hugged me. We stood there in the middle of the airport while people rushed past, and I finally let myself cry. We drove back to New Jersey in her car. She didn't ask questions. She just put on the radio low and let me breathe. When we got to my house, she came in with me. The place smelled stale, like old air and dust. She opened windows and started making coffee. We sat at the kitchen table, and she finally asked if I wanted to talk about it. I told her everything, the whole story from beginning to end. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm so sorry, Dad," she said. Her eyes were wet. "I'm so sorry. I told her it was my fault, that I was stupid, that I should have known better." She shook her head. "You weren't stupid. You were lonely, and she took advantage of that. That's not your fault. But it was. I knew it was. For the first month back, I barely left the house. I'd wake up and forget where I was. I'd reach for Ketzerin in bed and remember she was never really mine. I'd check my bank account and feel physically sick. I stopped eating. Rachel started coming over every other day to make sure I was still alive. She'd bring groceries and make me eat. She'd sit with me even when I didn't want to talk. One day, she sat me down and said I needed to see someone, a therapist. I told her I didn't need therapy. She said I did, so I went. Her name was Dr. Patricia Klein. She was maybe 60, gray hair, kind eyes. She didn't judge. She just listened. After I told her the story, she asked what I learned. I told her I learned that loneliness makes you stupid. She tilted her head. "That's not what I'm asking. What did you learn about yourself?" I thought about it for a long time. I learned that I'd rather be used than be alone. I learned that I gave away all my power because I thought love was something you purchased. I learned that I was so terrified of dying alone, I didn't care if I was being lied to. I just wanted someone to look at me like I mattered. She nodded. "And now?" she asked. Now I didn't know. I didn't know if I'd ever trust anyone again. I didn't know if I'd ever forgive myself for being so blind. But I knew I couldn't keep running. I couldn't keep trying to fill the emptiness with another person. The emptiness was mine. I had to learn to sit with it. It's been 9 months since I came back. I still think about Ketzerin sometimes. I wonder if she thinks about me. Probably not. I was just one of many. Just another old farang with money and loneliness. I don't check my phone hoping she'll call anymore. I deleted all her photos, her number, everything. Rachel comes over twice a week. We have dinner. We talk about normal things. Her kids, her job, the weather. She tells me she's proud of me and I don't understand why. I lost everything. But maybe that's the point. Maybe you have to lose everything to figure out what actually matters. I'm 67 years old. I gave a woman my savings, my house, my heart. She took it all, and I let her, because I thought that's what love cost. But love doesn't cost anything. Real love doesn't make you smaller. It doesn't make you afraid. It makes you feel safe. I never felt safe with Ketzerin. I felt desperate. There's a difference. I see that now. I wish I'd seen it then. Every time I see an old man with a young woman, I want to warn him. But I don't, because he won't listen. Just like I didn't listen to Dave. You can't save someone who's drowning. They'll just pull you under with them. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if I'll ever go back to Thailand. Part of me wants to see the house I built, to stand in front of it and feel something. Closure, maybe. But I know it won't help. The house was never mine. Just like Ketsarin was never mine. I rented a fantasy, and when the payment stopped, she moved on. I don't blame her anymore. I don't even blame myself. Not really. I was lonely. She needed money. We both got what we needed. It just wasn't love. It was a transaction, and I paid $512,000 to learn the difference. That's an expensive education, but I got it. I just wish it didn't hurt so much.